March 1972, The Tonight Show with Johnny Carson. Under the bright studio lights sat Chuck Norris, 5'10" and 70 pounds of pure martial arts mastery. Six-time consecutive world karate champion, undefeated in his entire fighting career, Hollywood's rising action star. When Johnny Carson asked the question that boxing and martial arts fans had debated for years, "Chuck, everyone wants to know, is boxing better or karate?" Chuck didn't hesitate. "Karate," he said with absolute certainty. Boxing is a primitive form of fighting, just two fists, just above the waist. In a real fight, there are no rules, Johnny. On the street, a boxer wouldn't last 30 seconds. But when Carson mentioned Muhammad Ali specifically, Chuck's response would ignite a confrontation that would remain secret for 50 years. Ali! Ali is just a showman! Float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Those are nice words, but in a real fight, poetry doesn't work. In a real fight, technique works, and Ali doesn't know kicks, doesn't know elbows, doesn't know knees. He only knows punches. Looking directly into the camera, Chuck issued a challenge that would make headlines around the world. If Ali wants, I'm ready. Any place, any time. A ring, the street, wherever he wants. I'll show him what real fighting is. What happened next defied everything the world expected from Muhammad Ali. For the first time in his career, the man who never backed down from a verbal challenge said absolutely nothing. What the world didn't know was that Ali's silence was leading to something far more profound than any public spectacle. A secret midnight meeting that would change Chuck Norris's life forever. If stories about the hidden encounters between legends move you, subscribe for more incredible moments when pride meets wisdom and nothing is ever the same. To understand what happened that night in a Los Angeles gym, you have to understand who Chuck Norris really was beneath the black belt and world championship titles. His story began not with strength, but with weakness, not with confidence, but with the deep, gnawing pain of a child who was never enough. Carlos Ray Norris was born in the tiny town of Ryan, Oklahoma, population 1,200, the first child of a desperately poor family. His father, Ray, was an alcoholic who spent more time with whiskey bottles than with his children. His mother, Wilma, struggled to raise 3 boys while her husband spiraled deeper into addiction and rage. Chuck was the target at school, weak, shy, introverted, the perfect victim for every bully who needed someone smaller to hurt. "I got beaten up every day," Chuck would recall years later in interviews, his voice still carrying the weight of those memories. "Every day, someone would push me, hit me, humiliate me. They called me weak Chuck. They called me coward Chuck, and I would just run. Every time, I would just run." The breaking point came when Chuck was 10 years old. One night, his father simply disappeared. No explanation, no goodbye, no promise to return. Ray Norris walked out of his family's life and never looked back, leaving behind a 10-year-old boy who cried himself to sleep that night. But only that night! Because that was the night Chuck made a decision that would define the rest of his life. "I will never cry again. I will never be weak again. I will never run again." At 18, Chuck joined the army and was stationed in South Korea. Walking through the back streets of Seoul one evening, he heard sounds coming from a small building. Shouts, strikes, the sharp crack of kicks connecting with training pads. He looked inside and saw men in white uniforms moving with incredible speed and precision, their bodies flowing like water, their techniques sharp as razors. Chuck walked into that Dojang that night, and for the next 12 years, he never truly left. He learned Tang Soo Do, then Taekwondo, then Judo, then Hapkido. He trained every day, every night, every weekend. His hands grew calluses, thick as leather. His bones cracked, healed, and grew stronger. His body transformed from that of a weak, frightened child into a precisely calibrated weapon. In 1968, he entered the Long Beach International Karate Championship and won! Then he won again, and again, and again. 6 consecutive world championships from 1968 to 1973. Nobody could beat him. Nobody could even come close. Chuck Norris had transformed himself from weak Chuck into one of the most dangerous men on the planet. But one thing hadn't changed. The anger inside him, the desperate need to prove to the world that he was no longer that frightened child whose father had abandoned him. "All my life, people looked down on me," Chuck said in a 1971 interview. "They said weak, they said small, they said not enough. And now I will show the world that karate is the best, and I am the best of the best." Chuck had conquered every challenger in the martial arts world, but there was one name that still loomed larger than his own. One challenge that could truly prove his supremacy: Muhammad Ali. When Chuck appeared on The Tonight Show that March night in 1972, he wasn't just promoting his latest tournament victory or his budding acting career. He was issuing a declaration of war against the most famous athlete in the world, and he was doing it in front of The next day, Chuck's words were in every newspaper in America. Chuck Norris, Ali wouldn't last 30 seconds on the street. Karate champion, Ali is a showman. Norris challenges Ali to real fight. Everyone waited for Ali's response. Muhammad Ali always responded. He had built his entire career on never backing down from a challenge, never letting anyone have the last word. I am the greatest, he would say. Nobody can beat me, he would declare. But this time, there was only silence. 1 day passed. Silence. 1 week passed. Silence. Journalists flocked to Ali's training camp in Miami, desperate for a response to Chuck's challenge. Ali, what do you say about Chuck Norris's words? They pressed. Ali looked at them with calm, thoughtful eyes. Nothing, he said simply. But he called you a showman. He said you wouldn't last 30 seconds. Ali shrugged. Everyone is entitled to their opinion. You're not accepting the challenge? Ali smiled, but it wasn't his usual boastful, theatrical smile. It was calm, peaceful, almost sad. I don't fight anyone, he said quietly. I just box. When Chuck heard Ali's response, his frustration turned to fury. He's scared, Chuck told his team. Ali is scared of me. That's why he's silent. But Joe Louis, Chuck's trainer and a respected fighter in his own right, had a different theory. Chuck, maybe he's smart enough not to respond. Maybe he doesn't take you seriously. Doesn't take me seriously. Chuck's eyes narrowed dangerously. Then I'll make him take me seriously. Chuck gave more interviews, each one harsher than the last. Ali is a coward. Ali is not a real fighter. Ali is nothing outside the ring. Every word made headlines. Every headline was delivered to Ali's camp, and every time, Ali's response was the same, nothing, or everyone can say what they want, or simply, I just box. Chuck's anger grew with each passing day. Ali's silence was driving him to distraction. Why wouldn't he respond? Why wouldn't he defend himself? Why wouldn't he fight? But Ali remained silent until May 10th, 1972, when a phone call came to Chuck's manager. There's a message from Mr. Norris from Muhammad Ali, the voice said. Chuck ran to the phone, his heart pounding. After 2 months of silence, Ali was finally responding. His manager read the message. Main Street Gym, May 15th, midnight. Just you and me. No cameras, no press. Come, let's talk. Chuck stared at the phone. Talk. After all this time, after all the challenges and insults, Ali wanted to talk, but Chuck's ego was stronger than his confusion. Okay, he said. I'll go. And if he doesn't want to talk, if he wants to fight, I'm ready. The 2 weeks leading up to May 15th were the most intense of Chuck's life. He trained harder than he ever had before, waking up at 4 a.m. every morning for 15-kilometer runs, then weights, heavy bag work, kick training, and sparring until 11 p.m. every night. He hired a former professional boxer to help him understand Ali's style. How does Ali move? Chuck asked. Ali dances, the boxer explained. Constant movement. His feet look like they barely touch the ground, but he's actually incredibly fast. His jab is the fastest in the world. You won't even see it coming. What's his weakness? His legs. Ali doesn't protect his legs because in boxing, hitting below the waist is illegal. Chuck smiled grimly. But in karate, it's not illegal. For the next 2 weeks, Chuck practiced nothing but low kicks, calf kicks, leg sweeps, techniques designed to destroy Ali's mobility. I'll destroy Ali's legs, he told his trainer. If he can't move, he can't dance. If he can't dance, he can't win. Meanwhile, in Miami, Ali was preparing very differently for their encounter. Ali, what are we going to do about Chuck Norris? Angelo Dundee asked. Special training? Defense against leg kicks? Ali shook his head. No! But Ali, this man is a 6-time world champion. His kicks are dangerous. I know. We should at least practice some defensive techniques. Ali looked at his longtime trainer with those penetrating eyes. Angelo, I've been boxing for 20 years. I've trained every day. I've studied every opponent. Now, in 2 weeks, I'm not going to learn karate. Then what will you do? Ali smiled that mysterious smile. I'll just be me. Is that enough? Ali was quiet for a long moment, looking out the window at the Miami skyline. Angelo, he said finally, Chuck Norris is a good fighter. Maybe he'll beat me. Maybe he'll kick my legs, knock me down. Maybe. Then why are you going? Ali turned back to his trainer, and there was a strange light in his eyes. Because this isn't about fighting. This is about something else. What? Ali didn't answer. He just smiled that same peaceful, knowing smile. May 15th, 1972, 11:45 p.m. Main Street Gym in the old industrial section of Los Angeles. From the outside, it looked like any other abandoned building in a neighborhood that time had forgotten. Rusted door, broken windows, a faded sign barely visible in the dim streetlight. But inside, the ring had been cleaned, the lights were on, and 12 people waited in absolute silence. 6 were from Ali's camp. Angelo Dundee, Dr. Ferdy Pacheco, photographer Howard Bingham, and 3 others sworn to secrecy. 6 were from Chuck's side. Joe Lewis, 2 sparring partners, and 3 witnesses who had signed confidentiality agreements. At 11,000, the first car arrived, a blue pickup truck. Chuck Norris stepped out wearing a black gi and his black belt, his face tense with concentration, his eyes sharp with anticipation. He walked into the gym, looked around at the ring, and smiled coldly. "Nice place," he said. Perfect for teaching someone a lesson. At 11th Ave, a black Cadillac pulled up. Muhammad Ali emerged wearing a white tracksuit and white shoes, but something was different about him. Gone was his usual theatrical swagger, his boastful proclamations, his "I am the greatest" bravado. Instead, there was just calmness, a deep, almost spiritual peace that seemed to radiate from his very... The 2 men stood face to face in the center of the ring. Chuck spoke first. "So, you came." Ali nodded. "I came. Are we going to fight?" Ali didn't answer immediately. He looked around the gym, studied the faces of the 12 witnesses, then turned back to Chuck. "What do you want, Chuck?" Chuck was taken aback. "What do you mean? What do I want? You challenged? I challenged you. You accepted." "I said, let's talk. You understood. Let's fight." Chuck's face flushed with anger. "Talk? Did I come here to talk? The karate champion, the best in the world. Did I come just to talk?" Ali remained perfectly calm. "Why are you so angry, Chuck?" "I'm not angry. You are angry. You're angry in every interview. There's anger in every word you speak. Why?" Chuck hesitated. This wasn't a question he had expected, and it wasn't one he was prepared to answer. "I'm not angry. I just want to prove I'm the best." "To whom?" Ali asked quietly. "Who do you want to prove it to? To me? To the world? Or to yourself?" Chuck couldn't answer. Ali took a step closer, his voice gentle but penetrating. "Chuck, I don't know you personally, but I heard your voice in those interviews. I read your words in the newspapers, and I saw something. What did you see?" "I saw pain!" The silence in the gym was deafening. Chuck's face changed, anger giving way to surprise, then to something that looked almost like fear. "You? What do you know about pain?" Ali smiled, but there was deep sadness in it. "I know everything about pain, Chuck. I've suffered too. I became Olympic champion and threw my gold medal in a river. I became world heavyweight champion and they took my title away. I refused to go to Vietnam and they called me a traitor. I didn't see the inside of a ring for 3.5 years. I lost my money, my career, almost lost my freedom." He paused, looking directly into Chuck's eyes. "But I didn't lose one thing. Do you know what that was?" Chuck shook his head, unable to speak. "Myself, who I am, and what I believe in." Chuck heard Ali's words, but his pride fought against accepting them. "Nice words," he said, his voice hard and brittle, "but you don't win fights with words. Will you fight me or not?" Ali thought for a moment, then nodded slowly. "If that's what you need." Chuck's eyes lit up with anticipation. "Finally, one of the rules. No rules," Ali said simply. "That's what you want, isn't it? A real fight, street fight, no rules, no gloves, no gloves." Chuck was surprised. Ali was agreeing to conditions that put him at a severe disadvantage. "Are you sure? Without gloves, my kicks—" "I know," Ali interrupted. "I should be asking if you're sure." Chuck nodded grimly. "I'm a 6-time world champion. I'm sure." The 2 men entered the ring and faced each other. Immediately took his fighting stance, left foot forward, hands up, body turned sideways in the classic karate position. He was coiled like a spring, ready to explode into action. Ali just stood there, hands at his sides. "No fighting stance, nothing." Chuck frowned. "Aren't you going to take a fighting position?" "No need, no need. I'm going to attack you." Ali shrugged. "Attack!" Chuck waited. 10 seconds, 20, 30. Ali didn't move. He stood there calm and peaceful, as if he were taking a leisurely stroll through a park instead of facing one of the world's most dangerous fighters. Chuck's nerves began to fray. "Fight!" he shouted. Ali didn't respond. "Are you scared?" Still no response. Just that calm, steady gaze that seemed to see right through Chuck's anger to something deeper underneath. If the whole world were watching us right now, everyone would see that the great Muhammad Ali is a coward. Ali didn't answer. He just looked, and that look drove Chuck to the edge of madness. "Fine!" Chuck exploded. "If you won't start, I will!" Chuck attacked with everything he had learned in 12 years of martial arts training. Low kick aimed at Ali's left calf, the exact technique he had practiced thousands of times over the past 2 weeks. Ali moved, not dramatically, not with wasted motion, just a subtle shift of weight and position. The kick hit nothing but air. Chuck was surprised but recovered quickly. He tried again, another low kick, this time faster and more committed. Ali dodged again, as if he had known exactly where the kick was going before Chuck even threw it. Chuck tried a combination low kick, then punch, then high kick. Ali avoided all three without even seeming to exert himself. How? Chuck was already breathing hard from the intensity of his attacks. How are you so fast? Ali didn't answer. Chuck attacked again, faster and more desperately. Kicks, punches, elbows, 12 years of training, thousands of hours of practice, all his techniques unleashed in a furious assault, none of them connected. Ali was dodging every attack with minimal effort, but he wasn't countering. He was just avoiding, just staying out of range. Why aren't you hitting me? Chuck shouted, frustration overwhelming his technique. Why are you just dodging? Ali spoke for the first time since the confrontation had begun. Because I don't want to hit you. What? I don't want to hit you, Chuck. You're not my enemy. Chuck went crazy. I am your enemy. I challenged you. I called you a showman. I called you a coward. How am I not your enemy? Ali stopped moving, became perfectly still. Because you're your own enemy, Chuck, not mine. Chuck froze as if he had been struck by lightning. What? What did you say? Ali took a step closer, his voice gentle but unwavering. You spent your whole life trying to prove something, trying to say, I'm the best, trying to say, I'm strong. Trying to say, I'm not that weak kid anymore. Chuck's face went white. You, how do you know about that? Because I was the same way. I used to shout, I am the greatest, every day, every hour. I could prove it to myself as much as to the world. And what happened? Ali's smile was infinitely sad. I lost everything! My title, my money, my career, and then I understood. What did you understand? That I don't have to prove myself to others. Real strength isn't beating other people. Real strength is beating the voices in your own head. Chuck's hands began to tremble. But I'm unbeatable. I'm a 6-time world champion. Yes, Ali said softly. And you're still angry. You're still in pain. You're still that little kid, aren't you? Still the kid people pushed around, hit, humiliated. Chuck's eyes filled with tears. Stop, he whispered. Still, the kid whose father abandoned him. Stop! Chuck attacked one final time, completely out of control, driven by pure rage and desperation. A wild right punch aimed directly at Ali's face. Not technique, not strategy, just the lashing out of a wounded animal. Ali didn't move out of the way this time. Instead, he turned his head at the last possible moment, letting the punch graze harmlessly past his cheek. At the same instant, his open palm touched Chuck's chest. Not a strike, just a gentle touch, like a father calming an upset child. Chuck was thrown backward 3 steps. His back hit the ropes, and he could barely breathe. How? He gasped. How did you do that? Ali didn't answer. He just stood there, calm and peaceful. Chuck tried one more attack, a high kick aimed at Ali's head. Ali ducked easily, and as Chuck's leg passed over his head, Ali touched him again, this time on the shoulder. Chuck lost his balance completely. His knees buckled, and he fell to the canvas. Chuck lay on the ground, looking up at the man who had just defeated him without throwing a single real punch. How is this possible? I'm a 6-time world champion. I couldn't land a single technique on you. Ali approached and crouched down beside him, not towering over him in victory, but joining him at eye level. Because you fought with anger, Chuck! I fought with peace! Anger burns hot and fast, but it burns out quickly. Peace never gets tired. Tears began streaming down Chuck's face, not tears of physical pain, but of something much deeper. I just wanted to prove. Everyone always looked down on me. They called me weak Chuck. They called me coward Chuck. I know! My father abandoned me. I was 10 years old. One night he just got up and left. He never came back. I know! Chuck was sobbing now, all his carefully constructed walls crumbling. I just wanted to be enough! Just once! I wanted to be enough! Ali put his hand on Chuck's shoulder. You are enough, Chuck! You've always been enough! There just wasn't anyone around to tell you that! The gym was silent except for Chuck's quiet sobs. The 12 witnesses stood frozen, understanding that they were seeing something sacred, the breaking down of one man's prison of anger and the building up of something new in its place. Minutes passed. Maybe 5, maybe 10. Finally, Chuck raised his head, his eyes red and his face wet with tears. Why? He asked. Why didn't you fight me? You could have beaten me. You could have beaten me easily. You could have humiliated me in front of everyone. Why didn't you? Ali smiled. Because you were already beaten, Chuck. You were beaten before you walked in here tonight. Anger had beaten you. Pain had beaten you. The past had beaten you. There was no need for me to beat you too. Chuck lowered his head. I said terrible things about you on television, in the newspapers. I called you a showman. I called you a coward. I know. I'm sorry. Ali stood and extended his hand to help Chuck to his feet. No need for an apology. Chuck looked at Ali's outstretched hand, then up at his face. Why? Why is there no need for an apology? Ali helped Chuck stand. Because you learned something tonight, and learning forgives everything. The two men stood face to face, no longer opponents, but something approaching teacher and student. What will you do now? Ali asked. Chuck thought for a moment. I don't know. Everything looks different now. How different? Chuck looked around the gym, at his hands, at the ring where his entire worldview had just been shattered and rebuilt. All my life, I fought every day with people, with the world, with myself. I never stopped. I never, he paused. I was never happy. Ali nodded. Now you understand. What do I understand? What real fighting is. Real fighting isn't with other people, Chuck. Real fighting is inside, with the voices that tell you you're not enough, with the pain that drives you to hurt others, with the anger that keeps you from finding peace. And tonight, you just won the most important fight of your life. Chuck frowned. I lost! Isn't that a bad thing? Ali laughed, a genuine warm sound that filled the gym. No, Chuck! It's the best thing that could have happened to you, because now you can start again. This time not with anger. This time with peace. That night, two men walked out of Main Street Gym. One was Muhammad Ali, leaving exactly as he had come, calm, peaceful, unchanged by what had transpired. The other was Chuck Norris, but he wasn't the same man who had walked in. Something fundamental had shifted inside him. At the door, Chuck stopped. Ali! Yes! Tonight! What happened tonight? Ali thought for a moment. Nothing happened, Chuck. Two men had a conversation. That's all! Chuck smiled for the first time that night, a genuine smile. We had a conversation! We had a conversation! Nothing else happened! Ali winked. What else could have happened? The two men looked at each other, and an understanding passed between them. What had happened that night would stay between them forever. The 12 witnesses swore an oath. What we saw here tonight stays here, and for 50 years, it did. Chuck Norris never told anyone about that night. Muhammad Ali never told anyone. When asked by reporters about their meeting, both men would simply say, we talked. When pressed for details, they would say, nothing special happened. But they both knew better, and they were both forever changed. After 1972, Chuck Norris became a different kind of fighter. He still trained, still competed, still won championships, but the anger was gone. I don't fight to prove anything anymore, Chuck would say in interviews years later. I fight because I love the art, and that has made all the difference. Chuck watched every one of Ali's fights after that night. In 1974, when Ali defeated George Foreman in Zaire, Chuck sent a congratulations message. Ali's reply was simple. The real champion never left. Years passed. Chuck became a movie star, a television icon, a global phenomenon. But in every interview, when asked about the greatest fighter he had ever faced, Chuck would pause, think, and smile. I can't say his name, Chuck would answer, but I'll tell you this, he beat me without throwing a single punch. And that defeat was the greatest victory of my life. How can a defeat be a victory? Chuck would get a distant look in his eyes, the expression of a man remembering something sacred. Because he didn't beat my body, he beat my ego. He didn't break my bones, he broke my anger. And when my anger broke, I was finally free. Free from what? From myself, from the little boy who was never enough, from the son whose father left, from the man who spent his whole life trying to prove something to people who didn't matter. Chuck would pause, lost in memory. That night, I walked into that gym as a 6-time world champion. I walked out as a student. And my teacher was the greatest of all time. This is the story they never told. This is the fight that never happened. This is the secret that two legends kept for 50 years. Because sometimes the most important battles aren't fought with fists or feet. Sometimes they're fought with wisdom, compassion, and the understanding that the strongest person in any room is often the one who chooses not to fight at all. Muhammad Ali defeated Chuck Norris that night, but not the way anyone would have expected. He defeated him by showing him that real strength isn't about proving you're better than someone else. It's about helping them become better than they were. That's why Ali was the greatest. Not because he could hit the hardest or move the fastest, but because he understood that the ultimate victory is turning your opponent into your student, your enemy into your friend, and a moment of potential violence into a lifetime of peace. And sometimes, just sometimes, that kind of victory can change not just one life, but two.